One of the most important skills to master is to figure out how we want things to position and scale, especially if we're working with different screens, which is something that we're most often doing as designers of digital products. Unlike graphic designers who might be designing a poster and they just know that the dimensions of that piece of paper are going to be exactly that, we as designers have to think about all of the responsive states of our websites or like different devices that someone might use when they're opening up our mobile app that we've designed or a web app that we've designed. So we need to keep in mind all of the different sizes of screens and how they might work, and how all of the elements that we're designing would position themselves in different screen sizes. So to be able to do that, we need to understand how things scale in Figma too. We have in here one rectangle that has a linear gradient fill. We have a frame. That frame has one other rectangle inside. So as you can see, I like to keep things divisible by 8 a lot. So what can happen if we just start to, without basically doing anything to this, if we just start to scale this frame? So I've resized it, and you can see that all of the elements by default that are inside the frame are going to be constrained from left to top, and that's it. So what we can do is we can know that this iPhone size of 375, there are other sizes of iPhones, some of them going to like 430. Those are going to be a little bit bigger, so this needs to basically stretch from left to right edge. Now, when I'm resizing this, you can see that this is becoming bigger. The same thing should happen to this element as well. So basically the only thing that's going to be consistent is the spacing on the left and right sides that we have. So like the margins are going to stay 24, but the entire frame needs to scale from left edge and right edge as well. So right now looks good, but we also notice another problem in here. The element inside of it needs to stretch as well. And now when it comes to the constraints that we have for this layer, they're actually going to be dependent on the parent frame. So since this one is scaling and it's going to basically stick to the left and right edge of the screen, we need to do the same thing for this element as well. Now, when we're scaling things from 375 to like 430, everything is still going to be basically scaling like it's supposed to. And now we can think about the frames and elements and how we position them inside of Figma and inside of the frames that they are, to ensure that things are going to work well on all of the other screens. That's one of the reasons why it's always best to start with the smallest screen, because if you position things correctly, it's going to be really easy to create a variation of the screens that's a little bit larger, if you need to do it to demonstrate to developers or teammates how it's going to look like on a larger phone. It's not something that you're always going to have to do. Most often, if a developer is really good, they're going to know how things scale based on where you've positioned them. And you can always use Figma to explain some of those things around, or have dev handoff meetings where you do those conversations. But if you're already thinking about those things as you're designing on the smaller screen size, you can easily transfer that to a larger screen size. So let's think of an icon, and I'm going to use little rectangles for now just for demonstration purposes, but basically if we have an icon in here like this, and we know that it's going to position based on the bottom right edge, you can also do that in Figma too. So you can just switch from left to right and from top to bottom, and it's going to be thinking about this parent frame, not the main frame in here. And if we resize it, you can see that now it stays there in place as well. One thing that we can do with this is maybe we can also make the scale, this item scale based on the height of the screen. And to do that, you can use something like top and bottom. So now when I'm resizing this, you can see that this one is scaling as well. it's probably not something that you would want, but just something to note, because there are cases where you're going to want that. What else can we do? If we're using scale, that means that it's just going to basically resize as we are resizing the main parent frame as well. Center is just going to keep it centered like this, so you can see it. And what else do we have? I think that's it from this. That's it from this. Oh, you can also fix position when scrolling. That's going to do one thing in here in your layer list that you need to be careful of. And that means that all of the layers that have a fixed position when scrolling, they're going to be over everything else. So if you still want to have elements that are kind of going to be placed above other items, you need to take that into account when you're planning your layers. And maybe a better example would be to keep this fixed when scrolling, like this. And if we have a smaller screen size, or like if we make this go from just like scaling, you can see now as I'm resizing this frame that the position is going to stay the same. And that's something that you're going to notice more when you're opening up the prototype mode. And let's make this a really large screen, and we're going to keep this like that. And if we open up our prototype mode and just open it up in something that looks like a mobile frame like this, you can now see that I'm kind of scrolling in here, and this frame is staying on top. It's going over everything. I can't actually move it around. So yeah, not sure if there's anything else that you need to know about positioning items. A thing to keep in mind, if you're using things like scale for resizing, things like this are going to happen. So if you're someone who's really trying to create pixel perfect screens, which is something that you should be doing, scale is most often the thing that you wouldn't be using. But yeah, as soon as you remove all of the elements that have fixed position when scrolling, the entire separation that we have in here with the fixed labels and scrolls is actually going to disappear. So that's all about the positioning. We already know the X and Y axis are dependent on the parent frame. Unless it's a frame that's drawn directly on the canvas, then the X and Y are based on the middle center point of our canvas that we're designing on. I think that's it for this lesson. See you in the next one.